ever. What was that? A sports podcast. I'm Garrett Menees. We're here, gonna be reviewing week 1 of the NFL season. I'm here with Connor Balthazor. Hi, Connor. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Got
good.
it perfect.
Okay, good. And I'm here with Tristan Korff.
Hello, everyone.
Korff, that's right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we got it down. Guys, that was a really great week of football, wouldn't you say?
It was.
That was a really good first week. Better than what I thought it would be.
Yeah, especially after that first game.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, after the first game, I was kind of not as excited as I thought I would be because it was just kind of a mess, but it really picked up as it went on.
No, I totally agree. And especially after last year's Chiefs versus Patriots, that was really unfortunate that this first game was not living up to that. But none of these teams really looked ready for primetime, did they?
No, between the Falcons and Eagles, none of them really looked like they had their offenses rolling. The defenses were so-so, but part of that was just that the offenses were so incompetent. There was a lot of fouls everywhere, a lot of flags thrown. It was just a mess all around.
Neither quarterback threw a touchdown.
I was surprised that Nick Foles didn't play as well. I thought he'd be carrying some of that Super Bowl momentum into this game, and he really looked kind of flat.
Well, in the third preseason game, I don't know if you remember this, but he had 4 turnovers all by himself. Literally, 3 of them were interceptions, one of them was a fumble, and he looked really, really bad. And that obviously carried into week 1 because none of them threw touchdowns. Each of them threw interceptions. That'd be Matt Ryan and Nick Foles. And obviously, Julio had an incredible performance, just like he always does. He had 19 targets.
19 targets.
And he had
10 catches.
10 catches. Now, is that more Julio or is that more Matt Ryan?
He's just a beast, I think.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, I mean, he like he said, he didn't throw a touchdown. He had 1 interception. These teams didn't even look like they could move the ball properly.
Honestly, what we have to talk about, though, is how weak the Falcons were in the red zone. They were so ineffective in the red zone.
Huge problem.
It was a huge problem, and it was a huge problem last year, too. And they said that this would be a focus of the offseason, that they were going to come in and be able to score in the red zone, be able to convert. They had 4 trips to the red zone and only 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and they just looked like they lost their identity once they got to the red zone, which I thought was so interesting, and where it looked like they only wanted to get the ball to Julio, really, and it just wasn't working, and I'm not sure why they didn't make appropriate adjustments.
You see, even last year, they targeted Julio like he was in top 5. He had top 5 numbers in red zone targets last season, and he had 3 touchdowns.
See, I think Steve Sarkisian, he understands that the fans want to see Julio get the ball, and he understands that Julio is a big part of their offense, but he has a problem giving them effective targets. He gives them a lot of targets because there's a lot of push for that, but if you look at it, Julio does not get effective targets. He doesn't get schemed open. He doesn't get effective matchups, and he's a little bit lucky that Julio can go out there and win the double teams and make plays happen, but I just don't think it can continue for a long time. I think it's just a bad system.
And Matt Ryan, he is a competent quarterback, whether you like to believe it or not. But, he had that MVP season in 2015. He's always been pretty consistent. But for some reason, they cannot get Julio going in the red zone. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. That's just got to be an offense problem. They just choke when they hit the red zone. Either that or for some reason defenses just figure them out when they hit the red zone. Maybe they're more predictable in the red zone offensively. I'm not sure what it is, but they need to figure it out because they have a good quarterback and they have a really good target to use in the red zone, but they just aren't putting those 2 things together.
Yeah.
If you just looked at a prototype for a wide receiver, I don't think you could build a wide receiver that's better fit for the red zone than Julio Jones.
That's absolutely true.
I mean, honestly, just what he's got.
In other news, Devontae Freeman exits, I believe, quarter 2 with a knee injury. They say there's no structural damage. It's not a big deal at all, except for my fantasy team, of course. I lost to you, Connor.
Yeah.
I got carried by Tyreek Hill and Drew Brees. I had nobody else go over 11 points. Then
Yikes.
I had 2 guys drop 30+.
The other big disappointment, though, I do have to say, going back to the Falcons game, was Calvin Ridley. A lot of people thought he'd have something to do with this offense. He'd be a big part of this offense. He had 2 targets, 0 catches, and a drop.
Yeah.
And remember, this was a wide receiver who everyone was talking about as being NFL ready in the draft. His big thing was that he is already a complete wide receiver. He's not a prospect. He's ready to go week 1.
He's 24 years old.
Yeah. And it did not look
He's
like he was
old
ready to
for a
go.
rookie.
He does not have the same type of upside as a lot of the other young receivers in the draft. So I think that could be a problem moving forward.
Well, he's buried in the depth chart. It's Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu. I guess is he third on the depth chart?
Let me check here. He definitely has Sanu and Jones over him.
Yeah, I mean, and he's in a better position than some other wide receivers are, like James Washington on the Steelers, or other rookie wide receivers. He's in a decent position, but he didn't look like he was very competent.
Yahoo Sports only has the Falcons listed with 3 wide receivers, and I don't believe that.
I didn't believe that either.
They must have do they have all the guys injured or something?
I don't know. Anyway,
that's weird.
Jay Ajayi for the Eagles, he led the team in carries with 15, but only 40% of the snaps. 2 touchdowns. So that tells me that they're going to use him exactly the way they did last year. They're going to rotate Clement. They're going to rotate even who's the third guy?
Sproles?
Yeah. They're going to rotate Sproles in. They were even getting their 4th running back involved as well. I mean, this is just a complete and utter running back by committee.
And the thing is, Ajayi's definitely the best. And
oh yeah, he's most athletic.
And Sproles is not a huge issue because he's retiring after this year. And he also did, despite only going 5 carries for 10 yards, he did hit a milestone. He moved into 6th in NFL history in all-time all-purpose yards.
Well, and he was out there. He had a higher snap percentage than Ajayi did. He was out there on like critical situations, 3rd downs. They were using Sproles in that situation when they didn't have him last year. And they weren't even using Ajayi in that role. They were using Clement. So,
but that was more in the first half.
Right.
And Sproles honestly was ineffective in the actual run game. He wasn't so effective on his carries. I think he had 5 carries and 10 yards. Yeah. And then Ajayi came in the second half and was a little more productive with that. So you have to wonder if Doug Peterson's going to continue to move towards Ajayi or if he's going to keep it as a three-man split there.
I agree. And Alshon Jeffrey not nearing coming back yet. They did not put him on the PUP. They actually took him off the PUP at the last minute. So he's not guaranteed out until week 8. But he's not near coming back. So if you have Aguilar or if you have Zach Ertz, I would just keep playing them because they're going to be target hogs.
And Ertz had a very interesting week. I think he led the Eagles in receiving yards, but it was also, I would say, his worst game that I've seen.
Well, yeah, the quarterback who's slinging him the ball is not doing very well right now.
I'm looking at his stats here. He had 5 catches for 48, averaged 9.5 per reception, but had 10 targets on a lot of drops.
10 targets is pretty drops. Good.
Yeah, and he had an offensive pass interference that negated a first down. It was very important for them. They needed that first down.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out for them.
He had a good game for the average tight end, but he did not play up to his
on 10 targets, he should have more than that.
Absolutely.
Especially as literally the wide receiver 1. Like, he is the wide receiver 1 on that team.
Yes.
Definitely.
He was good, but he's nowhere near where he needs to be.
But I think that will probably change. I mean, he's going to have some good games. That was kind of, in my opinion, a fluke.
Absolutely.
But we kind of have to move on to San Francisco and Minnesota. Great game to watch.
Absolutely. The Minnesota defense just looks killer. I'm afraid of them as a Packers fan, honestly. I'll have to admit.
What a dominant performance.
Yeah, the Vikings this year look really, really legit. And they've got Cousins now, and they've got Dalvin Cook back from injury.
Oh, yeah.
Who, by the way, they used as a workhorse. He was on the field for 80% of the snaps.
And that's coming off an ACL injury.
Uh-huh.
That's what's so important too.
People speculating whether or not Latavius Murray would, get in there, steal some red zone carries. I mean, he might, but he's literally in there to just give Dalvin Cook a rest.
Absolutely. And I mean, this was, like I said, his first game back, so this might be him and a reduced workload just to get him kind of back in the function of the
80% is a reduced workload.
Well, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with it. He could become a true workhorse back in the future.
They were already using him like that. Did you see?
That's true.
They were looking for him out of the backfield. He had what, 8 catches, 7 catches?
Yeah. He had 7 targets, 6 catches, 55 yards.
Yeah, and that's on top of using him on first and second down extremely often.
And I think that's going to be really important this season because the one question mark with the Vikings is their offensive line. And if Kirk Cousins showed that he wanted to get Dalvin Cook involved in the passing game, and to me that gives him a higher floor, of course, because they might not be able to move the ball all the time with the run game, but if they can still get the ball into Dalvin Cook's hands in the passing game, that'll be good.
If they have a diverse passing attack with Stephon Diggs and Thielen and oh my gosh,
Laquan Treadwell's.
Who is their tight end again?
Rudolph.
Rudolph, and he's so good. They have 3, maybe 4 legitimate passing targets, and then you throw in a run game. If they can get Cook going on the ground, the offensive line, they can be decent, and they can still have an incredible offense.
Is it possible that we have that this offense supports 2 wide receiver 1s, a tight end 1, and a quarterback 1, and possibly a running back. I mean, that's not been done very often. The Chiefs did it last year. I think they were the only, they were the second or third team to do it in NFL history to have a wide receiver 1 in Tyreek Hill, a tight end 1 in Travis Kelce, and a running back 1 in Kareem Hunt. I think they were one of the only teams in NFL history to do that. Is it possible that the Vikings do that this year?
If Cousins can keep it together, then absolutely. And he showed that he's a competent quarterback. He's shown that he's above average. He can get the job done.
Absolutely. I've had him 4 straight years in fantasy. Every single year he's been a starter is Washington. Not the first year when he came in, but every other year that he's been a guaranteed starter. And he's just produced 4 straight seasons of 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. Like, you can't get any more consistent than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And add in like one of the best supporting casts in the NFL. You have the potential for an
he has
incredible
2
season.
outstanding targets. Any team in the league would take Thielen or Diggs, and Thielen was a huge surprise last year. And people knew Diggs was going to be good, but Thielen just kind of like came out of nowhere.
Absolutely. Jimmy Garoppolo throwing 3 picks against the Minnesota defense. In my opinion, it was expected that he would look bad in this game.
I agree with that. Like, yeah, he had 45% completion percentage. He did throw for 261 yards, which is good, but he threw 3 picks, took 3 sacks. His QBR was 45.
Yeah. And one of those interceptions was not his fault, but the other 2 were overthrown. And with, Xavier Rhodes is guarding your top wide receiver. Their safeties are good. I mean, their whole defense is a sight to behold.
They really don't. They don't have a weak spot. Honestly.
Not at all. Not one starting spot is a weak spot.
If you're thinking of dropping Jimmy Garoppolo, he'll probably have some good. I mean, he'll have some good weeks. He was going to look bad against this defense.
Definitely. I didn't think he was going to look this bad, though. I will admit.
Yeah, his interception count did kind of surprise me. I figured that it'd be either 2, maybe 1, 0 if he could get very lucky, because I know how good that defense is.
He looked flustered in the pocket.
That's absolutely true, and that doesn't surprise me because their D-line and their pass rush is just...
I mean, they brought in Sheldon Richardson, who people forgot about how big of a signing that is, but they had perhaps the best defensive line in the NFL last season, and then they brought in Sheldon Richardson, kind of like Golden State.
I mean,
it's just not
Jacksonville is probably the only one, or the Rams at this point.
Yeah, I think you can make an argument for either the Rams or Jacksonville. The Eagles have a good defensive line, but it doesn't get much better than the Vikings.
Also, Dante Pettis with that amazing touchdown catch at the back of the end zone from Jimmy Garoppolo. That throw was incredible, I have to say.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I would be... people are going to be rushing to the waiver wire to pick up Dante Pettis this week. I wouldn't go kill yourself on it, because Marquise Goodwin was hurt most of the game, and he's at this point 4th on the depth chart. So next year they can get out of Pierre Garçon's contract with relative ease. There's only a $7 million dead cap hit on that. So if they do get out of his contract next year, which I think they might, he's getting pretty old, Dante Pettis is a good target next year, but I wouldn't be looking at him this year.
Yeah, and I like Pettis' upside in the future. He had something like 9 or 10 return touchdowns in college, and he was
very athletic.
Outstanding. We know he has athleticism. I think he needs to adjust his game more to the NFL.
Exactly.
Focus more on his hands. Because he was targeted 5 times, and he only had 2 receptions, but his catch was outstanding.
Yeah.
So
brilliant throw too.
In the future, he's going to be really, really solid.
Moving on to Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, I'm a Chiefs fan. Connor, you're a Chiefs fan, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so yeah, we were very excited about this game. This is an awesome game.
There is an obvious thing that stands out in this game immediately that you have to talk about, and that's Tyreek Hill.
Absolutely.
Right off the bat, he proved that he's not playing around this year. He's going to be something special this year if he stays healthy.
And yeah, there was a lot of speculation that last year it was a fluke, that he can't maintain that high of a touchdown count.
All of his touchdowns coming, by the way, 40 yards or more. So that's people have speculated that's an unsustainable rate.
And then he did have a 1-yard touchdown this game, but he had a 90-yard punt return and I think a 50+ yard pass. 200
yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns.
He was unstoppable in this game.
Absolutely. That is ridiculous.
And let's talk about the quarterback that was passing it to him, Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my God!
I just hate this, making the Chiefs fans. They're just going crazy for this.
Mahomes, I want to hold off on him a little. I don't want to say he's the second coming of Christ yet, but
schedule is really rough coming up.
That's true. The Chiefs have maybe the hardest schedule in the league.
I think that's fair to say.
And if the Chiefs, if they finish 10, 11 wins, if they can pull that off this year, they are a legit team, because they have Patriots. I think they're on the road again against the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And They have the Rams
And
in
the Steelers.
week 11 and the Steelers, and they've struggled with the Steelers in the past.
Kryptonite.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Steelers normally get them. It's normally Le'Veon that gets them. This year might be James Conner, unless they can bottle him up.
Well, that defense does not look like it's going to be stopping anything. So
That's true. That has been the Chiefs' issue. Like in the past, has been their strength, but in the last couple of years, it's more flipped to where the offense is just so good.
it would look a little better. I mean, it would have looked better if Eric Berry had been back there, but
That's true.
and Marcus Peters, of course. But
Yeah.
that makes me sad. So
Let's not talk about
yeah.
that. It's going to be important for the Chiefs to really come out strong here because the toughest part of their schedule is the first 6 weeks. I mean, they got teams like the Steelers, the 49ers, who people thought were going to be better, especially with Jerick McKinnon. Who knows how tough that game will be now. But then they have the Broncos, the Jaguars, the Patriots. And, a lot of people weren't expecting them to find a lot of success in the first 6 weeks. I don't know if I'd bank on that, though. They look deadly.
Well, yeah, against the Chargers defense, who on paper, people were calling them a potential Super Bowl team because of their offense and defense. Their defense looked, I mean, it was better without Joey Bosa, but their secondary is still incredibly dangerous, and we got it done. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw Phillip Rivers' face. They would flash to him every once in a while, and he would it looked like he wanted to leave the stadium.
Yeah.
I don't blame him because he has been on the Chargers for how many seasons? Like over 10, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know how many,
Let me
but
look. He's been on the Chargers his entire career since 2004.
since the Eli Manning Phillip Rivers
Yeah,
trade.
since that whole thing. And so he has been there for a very long time, and they have not made a Super Bowl
Yeah.
his entire career. And Phillip Rivers is an outstanding quarterback. I mean, his stat line was really good. 34 of 51. They attempted 51 passes against the Chiefs.
Yep.
Threw for 424 yards,
He had a great day.
which that is an indictment, I think, of the Chiefs' pass defense, which clearly did not get much better in the offseason. Of course, that might change when Eric Berry comes back.
He is the
but-
glue. He's the glue for that pass defense. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, Eric Berry is just such a presence on the field. Not just the opposing team seeing him, but the confidence that it instills in that pass defense.
He looks like he just came out of the woods after camping for 2 months. Have you seen his beard?
Oh, I have not seen his beard.
He looks like a Vietnam veteran that's still stuck in the past.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, I love Eric Berry though.
He's awesome.
He's somebody that he is likable across all teams just because of his story. And
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to root for him.
Anyone who's worried about Kareem Hunt, by the way, he played 71% of the snaps, so still a workhorse number. Nah, I don't worry about him at all.
yeah, he did have a bit of a low game. He averaging like 3 a carry, which like isn't great, but he was kind of like that last year as well, where he just would go through a slump and then he would just explode.
He was on the field for the majority of the offensive snaps, so I mean, he's gonna get touches. He's gonna get
Yeah, he'll be fine.
yeah. Moving on, we got this Tampa Bay game versus New Orleans, the shootout.
Good
The
Lord.
absolute surprise of the NFL schedule this for week 1, no doubt.
So are we gonna
48-40.
Are we gonna crown Fitzpatrick as MVP yet?
I think so.
I think that he's earned it.
He's got it locked.
Yeah, so Tampa Bay's offense gashed the New Orleans defense, and New Orleans defense was one of the best last year, one of the best on paper, and Ryan Fitzpatrick crapped all over them.
I mean, for the most part, they did exactly what they said they were going to do throughout the offseason. They wanted to get Deshaun Jackson more involved. He got that concussion, but he looked like he was going to be a big splash player throughout the rest of the season. So we'll see what happens with him.
And of course, Dirk Cutter comes out and says, Jameis Winston, look out. You have to play for your roster. You have to. I mean, we might go with Ryan Fitzpatrick. No, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
And
They're just doing that to motivate him.
Jameis had a decent offseason, I thought. So we'll see what happens when he gets back. But I would argue they're going to get better. They're going to get more consistent at least.
Well, their offense is, almost as diverse as some of the best teams in the league. They have Mike Evans, who's a true wide receiver 1. They have Chris Godwin, who's the most who still could be a potential number 1 wide receiver. He's only 21, so and he looks the part of a NFL number 1 wide receiver. Incredibly athletic. He had an amazing game. Deshaun Jackson had an amazing game. All 3 of their wide receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, Fitzpatrick was just throwing the ball all over the field.
And I really like their rookie tight end, O.J. Howard. I'm a huge fan of O.J.
He's not, second year now.
Yeah, second
he's-
year.
Oh, second year?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I remember seeing him in the championship game.
He's
with
ridiculously.
with Alabama. I just forgot which one it was.
He's a mountain.
Yeah, they've been to the last 4, so it's hard
Yeah,
to keep
but
track.
yeah, he only got 2 targets, but he got 54 yards on 2 targets.
yeah.
He is a mountain.
Cameron
he is-
Brate, too.
He's
Can't forget about him.
6'5", 6'6", 240, 250.
Yeah.
And he he's so fast.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
4.5, 4.4 or something.
They're another
crazy.
team
And
that
yet-
has 5 legitimate
And yet they
star
signed
receivers.
Cameron Brate to a four-year extension. So
Yeah, I mean it's lightning and thunder there at the tight end spot. So gotta love that.
Ronald Jones, potential rookie star running back that they drafted in the, I believe, second round. Healthy scratch after having more carries than yards in the preseason.
That is very unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. I didn't take him in Dynasty. I had many startup drafts. I chose not to take him because he can't catch the ball. I was taking Kerryon Johnson and Darius Guice way more than I was. I didn't take any Ronald Jones, and now Peyton Barber is the starter. So if he's still on your waiver wire somewhere, definitely go pick him up because he's going to get the workload.
So let's talk about the Saints' offense. Looked outstanding in this game, despite losing. That offense was incredible. Drew Brees completed 82% of his passes.
Yep.
That is an unreal mark.
On high volume too. It wasn't a low volume passing day for him.
By the way,
45 attempts,
17 targets for Michael Thomas, 16 catches, 180 yards and a touchdown.
I've been trying to get my hands on Michael Thomas as much as I can in the offseason, and he's going to be such a star this year, I really think.
Michael Thomas is absolutely the real deal.
Yes.
He is he's a true number one for the Saints, and he's perfect for Drew Brees because Drew Brees is just such a consistent quarterback, and I think that Michael Thomas is going to just flourish under the leadership of Drew Brees.
Yeah, and I was worried about Alvin Kamara coming in the season. Unbelievably efficient. Can he do it again? He's not. Other things. He's not built like a traditional workhorse running back. He's not a workhorse. That's clear. 8 carries.
Yeah.
8 carries, but yet he had an unbelievable game. What's his stat line there?
He had 8 rushes for 29 yards. Not great average, but he had 2 touchdowns. So they were using him down on the goal line. And then he had 12 targets, 9 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown.
He just continuously finds ways to make plays.
So that's 3 touchdowns?
He's a playmaker. Yes, 3 touchdowns total.
Yeah, and so they were not using Mike Gillislee on the
fumble.
goal
He had
line.
3 carries, 9 yards, and a fumble.
Yeah, but
he lost the
like you
fumble
said, they were
immediately.
using Kamara on the goal line.
Yes.
Which
is really interesting choice because Kamara doesn't come off as a goal line back to me. But he was effective.
If you can trade him now, and when Mark Ingram comes back, he's probably going to be involved. But next year when Mark Ingram walks, that's the year I'm going to be in on Kamara.
Yeah, last year I picked him up on the waiver wire, Kamara.
Right.
And I had him for the first week he blew up, and I traded him for I think 5 or 6 players.
I couldn't draft him now, this season. Now I feel like I can, especially with Mark Ingram going to be a free agent in 2019. They're not going to sign him back.
Yeah, he's not coming back because Kamara is just he's
29 years old.
It seems like Sean Payton has always hated Mark Ingram.
Oh, yeah.
It's so weird to me. He just has never wanted to roll with Mark Ingram as the number 1 back, which even when Mark Ingram showed that he could be the number 1 back, it just didn't look like Sean Payton trusted him, and that's kind of confused me for a long time.
Yeah, sometimes the Saints just make interesting choices, which I think has been holding them back from getting back to a Super Bowl because they have the offensive talent. And last year they had the defensive and offensive talent, but they just never can quite put everything together.
Yeah, we'll see about the defense this year.
Is that like on Sean Payton? Is that a front office issue, or is that just bad luck?
We'll find out. They have a pretty good schedule, so they'll probably end up looking better after week 1. But moving on to one of the least interesting games to watch after one of the most interesting games, that would be Buffalo and Baltimore. That game was the 3rd largest win in Ravens history. The Bills look like one of the worst teams in the league, and it's probably not even close.
Definitely, I would agree. I mean, they're just so empty in terms of talent of what they have. I mean, there's nothing in that locker room in terms of talent. Josh Allen is raw.
Completed 6 passes after coming in for Nathan Peterman, who threw 2 picks on, what was that, 10 completions? 8 completions?
He had 5 completions.
5 completions, wow.
5 of 18.
I was giving him too much credit.
27%. Polar opposite of Drew Brees that we were just talking about. Drew Brees had an incredible week. He completed 82%. Peterman, how did he get this start? I just don't understand how you give Nathan Peterman the start here.
I think the Bills realize how bad they are, and they're trying to play it smart with Josh Allen and not have him be the punching bag back there and take all the hits.
If you're going to do that, leave Peterman in. I don't understand.
Yeah,
if you're going to let him,
true.
if you're going to let him sit, let him sit.
At some point, Peterman though is just so bad that it's embarrassing.
And the fans are going to push them to start Josh Allen. If
yeah.
I mean, which they are doing now. Week 2 will be Josh Allen's week.
Should have traded for Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, they should have.
but it's the Bills, so I expected nothing.
Well,
less.
the Saints just did that, so
Yes,
the Saints are looking
the
up.
Saints. Oh man,
Saints are saying this is their year. They're going to go for it, which is kind of discerning when their defense plays that poorly. But it's good for me as a Packers fan because we have the first round pick, so I'm a fan.
Well, yeah, I'm predicting going back. We're talking about the Saints now instead of the Bills.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
No, I think the Saints defense will come back a little bit, but
Probably, yeah.
Anyway, the Nathan Peterman got yeeted out. Josh Allen completes 6 passes. Flacco had a great game. They ended up benching him because they were up by so much. What was the score? Like 49-7 or something?
47-3.
Yeah. So there you go. Let's see. The Ravens' top 3 wide receivers each scored a touchdown. That'd be Willie Snead, John Brown, and Michael Crabtree. Buck Allen actually outsnapped Alex Collins in this game. I'm pretty sure that's just because it was game scripted because they were up by so much that they just benched Alex Collins. Kenneth Dixon, their other running back who scored a touchdown. All 3 running backs scored a touchdown too. Kenneth Dixon
didn't score?
Kenneth Dixon just was put on the IR by the Ravens, so I wouldn't worry about Alex Collins at all.
Yeah. And then Lamar Jackson comes in late, and he runs really, really, really well. Goes 7 carries, 39 yards. He did fumble once, but he's a rookie, so give him time. He did not pass very well, though. He had 1 completion for 24 yards on 4 attempts.
It was just in the fourth quarter, right? They threw him in there.
I'm pretty sure that was it. I didn't get to catch this game, but I watched a few highlights, and I like Lamar Jackson's upside a lot. I think if they can develop him as a passer a little bit more, I think he's going to be dangerous because he might be the fastest player that they have, other than maybe John Brown.
And he will be the starter next year. Everyone knows it.
Yeah, because Flacco, was he in his last year?
Yeah.
Then,
Either
yeah,
that, no. Either that or this is the year after 2018 is when they can get out of his contract for pretty much nothing. So that's probably going to happen. And depending on what they do in the draft too, they'll probably give Lamar Jackson more weapons through the draft. So that's why he's the only quarterback I've drafted in dynasty leagues this year in the rookie draft. So I'm all in on Lamar Jackson. But yeah, that game was not fun to watch. Tennessee versus Miami was even less fun to watch because it was 7 hours long.
Yeah.
Longest game since the NFL merger.
That is
Part of history.
Yeah.
This was actually a very historic week because you had the Buccaneers and the Saints had the highest scoring opening week. And then we just had the longest game of ever. The longest NFL game ever. So,
Essentially.
Yeah. There's a lot of history this week.
Unfortunately, Mariota, he's down with an injury. I actually just got some breaking news telling me that he is throwing this week. So that's encouraging. But Delaney Walker is out for the season with a broken ankle and torn ligament.
That is rough.
Yeah, and I would predict he will probably retire after the season.
Deion Lewis looks pretty good for the Titans, though. I liked Deion Lewis.
I've liked Deion Lewis all offseason. I've kind of loaded up on him, and I think he kind of showed that he'll be a decent player for you throughout the year.
Well, and they really showed their strategy. I mean, they said, the coach, Mike Vrabel, came out and he said, we're going to use them 1A, 1B, that being Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis. And that really showed through because Deion Lewis was used essentially the rest of the game. They used Derrick Henry in the first quarter. At the end of the game, he broke off a 80-yard touchdown that got called back because of holding. So everyone would have been happy with his week at that point. But they really are using them both in this lead role.
Yeah, you'd like to see a little more production out of them, but I think it'll go up. This was just a messy game.
I mean, they did combine for 101 yards, which is good. So if you look at it from a 1A, 1B perspective, then that's not bad.
Right, and when you have a mobile quarterback on the field like Mariota, that improves your run game significantly. Blaine Gabbert was on the field for most of the game because Mariota was out for the game. But if he can play, which I think it's looking like he will be, he's been throwing this week, then I would be fine still playing Derrick Henry. It's just unfortunate that he didn't have a great game against the Dolphins, one of the worst defenses in the league.
Did Tannehill start? Yes, he did.
He did, yeah.
This was the first game that he's played
since 2016.
A couple of years, yeah. And he looked good.
He did look good.
He threw 2 picks, but he completed a lot of passes, had some decent yardage.
They did what they had to win the game. Frank Gore is still in the mix. It's not Kenyon Drake yet.
Frank Gore might be immortal. He is old.
Yeah.
How long has he been in the league? Frank Gore?
Too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kenyon Drake looked way more athletic, obviously.
Yes.
But
because Frank Gore is he's like a dinosaur.
And Frank Gore had more carries than he did. Is that correct?
No. Frank Gore had 9 carries. Kenyon Drake had 14.
Oh, okay, so
But Frank Gore had 61 yards and Kenyon Drake only had 48.
yeah, so that's not looking good.
Of course.
Yikes. Well, this week in your waivers, I'd be picking up Jonnu Smith. He's the backup to Delaney Walker. Since Delaney Walker is out for the season, if you're looking for a tight end to stream, especially if you're a Delaney owner, I would definitely pick up Jonnu Smith. He's a 3rd round 2017 pick by the Titans out of Florida International University. He's extremely athletic. If you want to go check out his specs, go on to his specs. If you want to go check out his metrics,
Specs.
yeah. What is he, a computer?
Is this a car?
If you want to go check out his metrics, go to playerprofiler.com. Check out how athletic he is because he's a monster. So if you're looking for tight end help, pick up Jonnu Smith. Moving on, we got the Houston-New England game.
Yeah. Watson did not really live up to expectations that I had set for him in my mind. I guess I shouldn't have set them that high, considering it's his first game back from an ACL injury and it's his 2nd season. So
their offensive line looked very poor. That's probably why Pro Football Focus ranked them 32 out of 32.
And honestly, Bill Belichick kind of sold out just stopping DeAndre Hopkins, which in this case I think was the clear choice because they didn't have Will Fuller in there. So, he continuously didn't have another option to go to. DeAndre Hopkins was kind of removed from the game. And
do you guys know who was covering him majority of the time? Because I know Malcolm Butler signed a huge contract with the Titans, so I don't know who their number one cornerback is.
Who's covering DeAndre?
Yeah, because I mean he had a good game, but they largely stopped him. So kudos to whoever that cornerback is.
Yeah, I mean, I think DeAndre Hopkins would probably be the receiver that I least want to play in the NFL. I watch interviews and they say it's like you're an offensive tackle playing a defensive end because he's just going to rip you, he's going to swim you, he's boxing you out everywhere.
But I think he has one of the best locks on a target basis. Like there's no one else who's going to be taking targets away from him.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's true.
So I mean, I think he's still a great play.
I think it might have been Stephon Gilmore.
Stephon Gilmore, okay.
Because he had 7 tackles and Hopkins had 7 receptions and he had 8 receptions and it looked like Gilmore's their number 1 corner right now.
Well, good for him because not many people can hold DeAndre Hopkins to only 7 catches.
Yeah,
not many humans in the world.
8 catches, 78 yards, which is still like a good game, but for DeAndre Hopkins, that is holding him.
If you were able to get Lamar Miller this year, he was pretty cheap, and he looked better than he ever really has with Deshaun Watson, the mobile quarterback. So I mean, he was 20 for 98. He had a couple big runs. Good game for Miller. The Brady Gronk domination continues.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Brady threw for 277, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That interception was tipped at the line, so it wasn't his fault. Gronk had 7 catches, 123 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown was awesome. Nothing really much to say. Gronk is just a maniac.
I mean, if he stays healthy, this is going to be one of his biggest years, if not the biggest year that he's had.
His target competition is almost non-existent.
It's zilch.
Yeah, I mean, like you've got Chris Hogan, but Chris Hogan did not look very good. I think he's going to be fine.
He wasn't targeted very much.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to be playing Chris Hogan because Brady was looking. Brady had 2 throws that were overthrown. One to Chris Hogan. The other one was to. No, he had 2 to Chris Hogan, but they were both way over his head. They were looking at him in the end zone, but it didn't come to fruition this week. Sexy Rexy is the lead back for them. He had 16 carries, I believe, 80-something yards.
Yeah, he looked good.
He did look good, and Jeremy Hill tore his ACL. So
you got to go get James White now. You have to go get James White now.
Yeah,
I mean,
you do. Sony Michel is not close to coming back yet.
I think Bill Belichick hates, the more number of running backs you can have touching the ball in a game, the happier he is. But in this case, he's basically going to be forced to have a James White, Rex Burkhead backfield.
If Rex Burkhead is on your waiver wire, you should go pick him up instantly.
Absolutely.
There's to have the number 1 running back, a guy who also had a great season before he got hurt last year. I think you should be playing him almost every week.
Gosh, being on the Patriots roster as a running back, I feel like just is like the kiss of death for a running back in the NFL because it seems like once they're done there, they'll go somewhere else and then they just kind of disappear off the face of the earth.
Well, I'm ready to play Rex Burkhead while he's on the Patriots.
Yeah.
Don't know if you guys know this, but the Patriots did sign Corey Coleman this week.
I saw that.
I had made the prediction that he would either be signed by the Eagles or the Patriots.
Congratulations. Good
Yeah,
for you.
yeah. I'm happy. The Bill should never have cut him, but here we are.
Brown
Patriots
shouldn't have traded him,
Patriots do what
probably.
they do, and they scoop someone else's player off of the trash heap, and they're going to use him probably a lot, especially while Edelman's suspended.
And people wonder why the Patriots are so consistently good. I mean, it's not some magic trick that they're doing. Like, you see what they're doing. I mean, Corey Coleman, everyone can agree he was a ridiculous prospect. It didn't work out for him in the NFL and the places that he was at, but just picking him up off the waiver wire,
Is there ever a time where he could succeed?
it would be with the
It
Patriots.
would be with the Patriots.
Like this is
So,
gonna be
If you have a deep bench, I would throw Coleman on there, just to see what he does, especially just to see where they put him on the depth chart and how they use him.
Coleman's upside is tremendous.
Oh yeah,
Because he's probably gonna come in as number 3, I think, and like he might be number 2, maybe even 1.
his athletic comparison on PlayerProfile.com is Odell Beckham Jr.
Well, that's not a bad comparison.
That's not a bad comparison at all.
I would personally be fine with being compared to OBJ athletically.
Yeah, I bet that's probably what got him on the Patriots roster. Moving on to the Jags and the Giants. Bortles is gonna Bortles. It still got them the game. The defense got them the game.
Can I just express some frustration here?
Yes, please.
This is ridiculous. Okay, Sam Darnold led the Jets to a win, right? And he looked pretty fire, okay? Like, he looked like he could be a big player in the future. And if you take someone with a top 5 pick, you want them to be a game changer. Like, totally change, not just a game changer, but a franchise changer. Saquon Barkley is an incredible player, but I do not think that he should have been drafted number 2 overall, and I'll continue to hold to that.
You have my support on that.
I agree with you on that there. I mean, like, he is an incredible athlete.
And he will have a good season based on the volume that he's going to get.
He had, oh my gosh, what do you have? 18 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown, and then add in 2 catches for 22 yards. And he had, did you see?
And that was against the Jags, by the way.
Did you see his cutback
On the touchdown?
Yeah.
on the touchdown?
Yeah.
It was
He's
unreal.
like everyone has been saying, he broke the combine.
He is such a prospect. Like, he is the perfect running back, in my opinion. He could be a little bit better out of the backfield, but for a true running back, he just makes one cut and he's gone.
He's going to be fine. He just did that, and he was not very efficient most of the game. Besides the touchdown, he was not very efficient. I think it was like 3-something yards a carry. But the volume they're going to give, this was against the Jags. You got to remind yourself.
Yeah.
Like, one of the best run defenses in the league. Like, if he can do that against the Jags, like, he can do that against anyone. And with the volume, I'm not worried at all.
I'm happy that they don't play. Do they play the Chiefs this year, the Giants?
I don't believe so.
Okay, good.
That would be atrocious.
That would be rough. That would be a murder.
Odell Beckham Jr., 15 targets, 11 catches, 111 yards. He's just the focal point of their offense, other than Saquon Barkley.
But he could be so much better if he didn't have Eli Manning. I'm sorry, but watching that game, I don't understand how Odell wasn't more frustrated than what he was. I understand now why he gets so freaked out. The targets that he gets, he has such a better opportunity for catches, for yards after the catch and stuff. He's not getting the ball where he needs it. He's not getting the placement right. He has plays where he's wide open and he's just looked off, and it's so frustrating. He could be breaking the NFL right now, and just in terms of pure talent, it just doesn't work out for him week to week with that quarterback.
Like you said, going back to the second, you don't believe how Saquon Barkley should have been selected second overall. They're not going to have that high of a draft pick again.
No. So they're not, and this was the year of the quarterback in the draft.
Right. And it worked out so well for them that, and poorly, but well in terms of the NFL draft, where they had their top 3 wide receivers go down and they had nothing at running back, and Eli Manning was just doing everything himself last year. That's how they ended up 3-11 or whatever they were. That's how they got that high of a draft pick.
It's similar to what happened to the Packers, where the Packers had an off season where their star quarterback got hurt, and then they had a pick that's usually much higher than what they usually would get.
Right.
And the Packers traded back, and now they have an extra first round pick. They have 2 stud cornerbacks. It looks like 2 young stud cornerbacks, and I think they executed that perfectly. They had the 11th pick, and they got an extra first round pick out of it. If you have the 2nd overall pick, you can set yourself up for years of success just by trading back.
Yep.
Especially when you already have a half competent roster with the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Think about if they had gone Sam Darnold, Darius Guice.
I think they would.
They could have done that.
I agree that Saquon Barkley is better than Darius Guice, but
at the running back position, it doesn't end up mattering that much.
You can still have splash plays.
The longevity of running backs in the NFL is atrocious. I mean, like, those guys, they like
excluding Frank Gore.
Excluding Frank Gore, he's immortal and he will play forever.
Yeah.
as I expect. But most running backs, the good ones, they go like 7-8 seasons.
If you're lucky.
If you're really lucky, and they don't get lots of money either. I mean, now running backs are kind of fighting for their money. Le'Veon is holding out.
Gurley locked up that 5-year.
Gurley got a great deal.
David Johnson got his deal.
David Johnson got his money. But running backs, they aren't making big contracts, and they never really have. And where was I going with that? But yeah, I forgot what I was saying. Was I talking about Geis?
I just don't know how long he'll be able to be a game changer, because I do agree he will be a game changer, but literally anytime he gets the ball, and I know this is true for everyone, but running backs especially, anytime he gets the ball, it could be a season over with. It could be, a career-altering injury, and that is just way too much stress.
When they get the ball, when a wide receiver gets the ball, he has one guy on him usually, and he's fast enough to either evade that guy or get tackled by one dude.
And it's a cornerback,
right?
Not
if you're a running back,
lineman.
Every single player on the defense is trying to tackle you.
A good running back is gonna have double the touches of a receiver as well. Like,
right?
I'm gonna look at the Giants game. Like, Saquon had 18 rushes and 2 catches, and he was targeted 6 times out of the backfield. OBJ had 11 receptions, so on
15 targets.
On 15 targets. But OBJ, he gets 11 catches compared to Saquon's 20 touches. That's proof right there.
Statistically, you have a better chance of getting hurt.
Absolutely. Because, if you're getting double the touches as your team's top receiver, you're more than likely going to get hurt at some
Speaking
point.
of getting hurt, Leonard Fournette, another lower body injury, hamstring. He has not practiced this week yet, and if he is not practicing by Friday, I would start to worry. I would pick up T.J. Yeldon.
Yeah, you got to get T.J.
I have always been a big fan of T.J. Yeldon. I've thought that the Jaguars, they underused him, and I've always liked him. I've always had a soft spot for T.J. Yeldon. I can't explain it, but I've always liked him.
He's very athletic.
Yeah, he's a good running back, and I think that if Leonard Fournette's injury is serious, I think that maybe this could be like a coming out party for him after like 4 or 5 seasons in the NFL, 3 or 4.
Leonard Fournette did miss several games last year with the similar lower body issues. I believe it was hamstring again. So just Leonard Fournette owners, keep your eye on this situation.
Yeah, that was my one concern. I thought about drafting him, but he's injury prone. At least
all the way back to high school.
Yeah, he's always been injury prone. He's
just the lower body.
He's a freak athlete, absolute freak. But he gets hurt.
Yeah, he's a weekly starter based on how they play him and based on how they deploy him and based on his athleticism. But just keep an eye on this injury situation. Moving on to the Bengals and the Colts. This was a very interesting game. This was Andrew Luck returned to the field.
And you kind of have to feel sorry for him because he put his team in a position to win the game, I felt like, at least in the first half, definitely in the first half. And his defense kind of just blew it for him. And I know he probably should have been able to put up more points in the second half, but he's got to have some help on that roster. He just needs some help.
Yeah, what other than T.Y. Hilton, his second string wide receiver is Ryan Grant.
Yeah, and they have Eric Ebron, which he's a little younger than I thought he was, but still, he's not the best tight end in the world. He's not going to shatter the earth.
But they do have 2 capable tight ends again, like they did in, I believe it was 2012 when they had Kobe Fleener and Dwayne Allen, and they each had 10 touchdowns or 8 touchdowns, something ridiculous.
Now we're looking at Dwayne Allen and Eric Ebron, right?
It's Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron.
My bad. What am I talking about?
Yeah, and Jack Doyle had a pretty solid game. He had 7 catches, 60 yards. He did fumble. Yeah. Wait, no, FL's flag.
No, my nickname for Jack Doyle on my fantasy team is Andy's Blankie, because he's the safety blanket. Yeah. He's the guy who's going to target the most other than T.Y. Hilton in this offense.
Yeah,
that's why I drafted him. Most of my late tight end acquisitions have been either Jack Doyle or someone else. But he's going to be involved.
AJ Green had a very interesting game. It was on and off game. Put up some decent stats, but he also had 3 drops, I think, and 2 fumbles, which he lost one of those. So kind of a rough game for him, but he in fantasy it still worked out.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect this to be anything. He's going to be the number 1 wide receiver going forward. He's going to have a good season unless he gets injured. So
I really like Joe Mixon.
Workhorse,
very, very good.
That's what happened in the second half. Is Joe Mixon just decided to take over and destroy the Colts defense by himself.
Yeah, he averaged 5.5 on the ground, 17 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown. You can't ask for much more than that.
No, and people have worried that, how Marvin Lewis likes to use running backs. They've worried that he would split between, Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard, and that was not the case. He is the complete and utter workhorse of that team.
Yeah, Gio, they barely used him. He had a carry and he lost yards.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Didn't really do anything.
He was dominant.
And he's going to open up so much for them. I mean, John Ross I think he'll have a really decent year this year. He showed, he had one catch, right? For the touchdown.
Yeah, he had a touchdown.
Which, if he didn't catch that touchdown, his week would have looked a lot worse.
Was that an actual pass, or was it like one of those like ones where they just like tossed it out in front of him?
That was a real pass.
Okay.
And honestly, that's why I'm so high on AJ Green, because that having a guy like John Ross who actually broke the combine, he had the fastest time in NFL history. Having him on the other side just helps AJ Green so much.
Yeah, it's going to be it's kind of an interesting mix that they have. They have someone that's ridiculously speedy, and they have someone that can work underneath, can get over top of you. I mean, AJ Green can do everything, so yeah.
Next game we're going to talk about, the Cardinals and the Redskins. Sam Bradford, I don't know if he can even play in the NFL anymore.
He couldn't move the ball. He couldn't move his offense, and that's kind of too bad for the Cardinals, but
he had the season that he did with the Vikings because of their offensive line.
That is the Bradford that we've been waiting. Last year's Bradford was what we were waiting to see from him for a very long time. But I think he'd been holding it up for so long that he just blew it all out in 1 year, and like now he's just not. He's back to the same old.
He will not play a full season. That's just not going to happen.
I think they're gonna go to who they draft? UCLA.
Yeah, Rosen.
Josh Rosen.
Yeah. If not because of that performance, which was probably one of the worst quarterback performances of the week, I mean, they couldn't do anything. He couldn't move the ball at all.
And on the other end, Alex Smith had a very, Alex Smith
type of week. He had an Alex Smithian game.
Yeah, that's exactly what you'd expect. And, he was a game manager, a really good game manager, I thought.
Threw to his running back a lot. Chris Thompson, Adrian Peterson got a lot of carries.
Yeah, 26.
Yeah.
Which he is getting up there in age.
Yeah.
And he's getting 26 carries.
I didn't see that coming. I would never have guessed he would have gotten 26.
If he's on your waiver wire, I mean, they're going to use him like that. Go pick him up.
Which kind of makes sense. I mean, this is going to be, his last season or one of his end seasons, so they can use him as a workhorse. They don't have to, it's kind of cold, but it's the NFL. They don't have to worry about, future implications. They just run him dry and see how far you can take him.
Yeah, and I will be much more looking forward to seeing what Larry Fitzgerald can do with Josh Rosen.
Definitely.
Than as opposed to Sam
Fitz in his
Bradford.
last year? Has he announced that he's retiring, or are we?
He's
unsure?
taking it year by year. So he said he was going to play this year. No comment on whether he's going to play next year, I believe.
I think it might come down to how good Josh Rosen is. If he
If-
comes
yeah.
in and he's electrifying and he can move the
If
offense.
the future looks dark, I think he might retire.
But if he retires, I mean, Christian Kirk is their number one wide receiver. He's a rookie. We haven't seen him very much, but I mean, they need to get some weapons on that team.
Yeah, because the Cardinals a few years ago, they looked pretty good, and now they've really fallen off in the last couple of years. They just have not stacked their team the way that they needed to.
Well, and their offensive line is atrocious.
That is true.
A good thing though, David Johnson catches passes out of the backfield, so he'll stay productive.
He's the one player on the team I'm not worried about.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean no question marks about him. He's going to be consistent.
Yep. Seahawks, Broncos. Oh, excuse me. No, Cowboys, Panthers. Yep. Cam Newton really put it to him.
Yeah.
The Cowboys look very incompetent. Like you said, with the Cardinals, they could not move the ball at all whatsoever.
What do you think went wrong for the Cowboys there?
They decided to let their number one wide receiver go.
I have had huge question marks about the Cowboys throughout all of the offseason. Videos from their training camp kept popping up in my Twitter feed, and I'd watch it. I'm just like, what is happening to these human beings that call themselves a football team? And
So you got some Cowboy hate over there?
But my ultimate gripe with the Cowboys is that, unlike so many other teams, like and the Seahawks with Russell Wilson is the best example of this. They had him on one of the cheapest contracts a quarterback you can for a quarterback you can have, and they completely and utterly built their defense up around him, and they made a run to the Super Bowl and won one. What are the Cowboys doing? They have Dak Prescott on a $250,000 contract for 3 more years or 2 more years, something like that, and they are
They punted.
getting rid of all of their weapons.
I mean, they punted. Honestly, they were like, "We'll try again in 3 years.
When they have to pay
Which,
Dak Prescott $25 million a year.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for them. And honestly, yeah, Dak Prescott, just because of the need for quarterbacks, he's going to get paid like crazy. But to me, when you're talking about $30 million contracts, I think the list goes Aaron Rodgers, Finn, in terms of who can actually live up to $30 million contracts. But it's just the market. He's going to need to get paid a handsome amount. The next 2 years will kind of change, what he's paid.
And what happened to their offensive line? A couple of years ago, it was by far the best one in the league. And have they just gotten rid of a ton of people? Because I know they still have Tyron.
That was a big surprise,
yeah. Tyron Smith. But Dak Prescott got sacked 6 times.
Yeah, they were asked about that all last year, about what's happening with the offensive line. Why do they, why does it look like they've taken a step back? And it's continuing this year because of the injuries they've suffered. And just, I don't know, something's up with them.
Yeah, there's just something wrong with Dallas. And I think a lot of it stems from Dez. Because they had, I think it was Sean Lee, come out and blame Dez. It was either he went out and blamed Dez, and some people came out and spoke out against him. I think there's got to be a divided locker room down in Dallas. I think they're just having some internal issues. That's got to be it.
Oh yeah, because some players saw Dez as a leader and looked up to him, and some players I don't think, obviously, after coming out and saying it, they didn't gel with Dez so well. So that definitely could be a problem that they have down in Dallas.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Christian McCaffrey, he did not carry the ball very much. He had 10 rushes for 50-something yards and 6 catches. So they're still using him like the lead back. It'll be interesting to see though. Do we know how many carries C.J. Anderson had?
He had 7.
He had 7. Yeah. So it's Christian McCaffrey, but
yeah.
There's not much to say. I think he'll have a good season.
And
So.
McCaffrey and C.J. Anderson had almost identical games, except Anderson had less carries. They both averaged 5 yards exactly. So that's about what you'd want.
He does have he has a way higher snap share though. So they're definitely going to use him as the lead back.
But McCaffrey, I was a little worried about him. I thought he'd be one of those college utility backs that ends up never really panning out in the NFL. But he's been pretty good so far. I like his odds of being a starter for the next several years.
Well, yeah, and the way they were using him in the preseason was workhorse-like numbers. I think this is probably just a fluke game.
A big difference between McCaffrey and a lot of the utility backs that come out of college is he can run up the middle. He did it in college, and he's proven that he can do it in the NFL. And
right,
that's such a big part of being a workhorse is not just being a little scat back that's out there trying to get open space, but if you can consistently run up the middle and make some yards.
I thought that's what he was going to be last year, like just the scat back type when they had Jonathan Stewart. But when they got rid of Jonathan Stewart in the preseason, they showed they want to give it all to him. And this game didn't really game script out well for him, but I think that's still how it's going to be. In PPR, he's a monster.
Absolutely.
Moving on, we got the Broncos and the Seahawks. What do you guys think about this game?
Here I didn't get to catch this game. Keenum. Oh wow, that's a really odd stat line.
Yeah, he had a good game. Like he was able to perform well enough against the Seahawks to win the game.
Yeah, like it looks like he played well enough to get the dub, which is important, and that's obviously the most important thing. But he threw 3 interceptions, which is I don't know. I don't have any context to those interceptions. I did not see this game.
I don't have as much context as I want either. I'm gonna have to go back and look and see how those interceptions happened. But the Seahawks. They both quarterbacks had a good game. Russell Wilson had a fantastic game. But he's having to throw to Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Lockett's good, obviously K-Stater, but like his other wide receiver is 35-year-old Brandon Marshall.
Yeah, like Lockett is a good target. A little questionable though because of that horrible leg injury he had at the end of last season though, and he's been inconsistent at best in the NFL. He's shown that he's a really good returner, but receiving wise, he's had some really good games, but then he's kind of disappeared.
But Doug Baldwin has gone down.
Yes,
with another knee injury.
Yeah,
the opposite knee of the one he injured in the preseason. Not good.
And honestly, in the preseason, it looked like Russell Wilson couldn't move the ball so well without Doug Baldwin, and so it's going to be kind of a concern, I think.
I actually don't think it will be a concern for Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson?
Yeah.
Well, he'll get his, definitely. But in terms of just
in terms of the total offense, yes.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson is a fantastic quarterback.
Yeah,
so.
He'll run, he'll pass, he'll do whatever it takes. He's shown that it doesn't matter what offensive line you put him behind, he'll... Yeah.
Russell really has had probably one of the most difficult careers out of any good quarterback I've ever seen, simply because the Seahawks just don't build around him. They did when they went on the Super Bowl run. That is true. But even then, their O-line was not great.
No.
Their O-line hasn't... I don't think they've ever had a good line since they've gotten Russell. So he's literally been running for his life his entire NFL career.
And that's why if you have Chris Carson right now, who is the starter, Chris Carson is the starter. If you have him right now, he had a pretty decent week. If you can get some sort of value for him, I would trade him right now.
Definitely.
Because there are going to be some games where he looks absolutely atrocious behind that offensive line.
That's absolutely
And even,
true.
I mean, there's a whole battle between Rashad Penny and Chris Carson. And
Rashad Penny's going to win.
Rashad Penny's probably going to win, but honestly what it comes down to is if anyone won decisively, how much value is really left behind that offensive line? I don't think we're talking about a running back 1 behind that offensive line.
No.
A running back 2 is sketchy, definitely if they're splitting the workload. So just trade them away if you can.
Honestly, yes. Now let's go to the Bears and the Packers. I know you really want to talk about this, Tristan.
Yeah, this is a game I've wanted to get to for a long time. Definitely the best opening game for the Packers I've seen. It was just an absolute thrill to watch. Not, there was some low points. I almost cried. I'll admit it. I'm not afraid to admit it.
Yeah,
but,
facing Khalil Mack is scary.
oh, yeah.
Did you see the highlight where Deshaun Kaiser, they were down in the red zone, and Khalil Mack literally ripped the ball from Deshaun Kaiser's puny hands?
Okay,
Yeah.
it was his fault, though, Kaiser's fault.
No, that absolutely was.
The biggest problem that Kaiser's had in the preseason was that he has no feel in the pocket, and you can tell that. Everything that he does. That play was the perfect example. You do not move into Khalil Mack when he's bull rushing your right tackle. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get out of that. Aaron Rodgers is incredible. He can move around in the pocket. Deshaun Kaiser does not have that ability, and it showed.
Hopefully being a backup to Rodgers will teach him some stuff like
Yeah.
that. In the same way that Rodgers say that Favre taught him.
Exactly.
Back in the early days.
So he goes down in, was it the first quarter or second quarter?
It was second quarter.
Yeah, he goes down in the second quarter, comes back like the second coming of Christ,
Yeah.
and on one leg, essentially, wins the game. Incredible game.
You know what he told his teammates? He told them, do your job and I'll do the rest. And to me,
Wow.
like, that is killer. If your quarterback goes out there and says,
That is
do not,
that is ice mentality.
exactly. He said, don't do anything special. Just do your job and I will carry this team to a win.
And that's what they did.
And he can do it. And the quote from Xavier Rhodes, who's he's the cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings. He said, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best to ever do it, and the biggest problem about him is that he knows it. He knows that he's one of the best, and he just has that silent swagger. He understands that he can win any game by himself, basically. He's always going to be someone that's really impossible to shut down.
And that does bring up an interesting point that maybe we should get to after we cover this game. Does this game make Aaron Rodgers the best quarterback to ever play?
It's possible. That's why you pay him that money.
That he earned that contract.
Oh, yeah, he earned that contract.
Just in
And-
that first game.
Yeah.
He literally
Just
just
pay
made
him-
the contract.
just
worth
pay
of
him now.
One game.
Just pay him now.
Give him all of his guaranteed money right now.
But you have to, Khalil Mack was ridiculous in the first half. Part of that, I think, was because of the Packers scheme. They just refused to get the ball out quick. The routes take forever to develop. They always do individual routes. They don't do combo routes, which is a mess because that doesn't give you the picks. That doesn't give you a wide open Randall Cobb underneath or anything like that.
It relies entirely on the receiver to make a play.
And it relies on Aaron Rodgers being able to move in the pocket for all of 5 seconds while he's got Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks coming from, which is not going to happen.
It's a lazy offensive scheme, which I would expect nothing less from Mike McCarthy.
Yeah,
But
he would be long gone if not for Aaron Rodgers.
I hate to admit it, but I agree with you there. And it's just, honestly, the sad part is when we saw the change was when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. He was no longer mobile. They knew that he wouldn't be able to move around in the pocket, so they just put him back in shotgun and said, you're going to get the ball out in 2 seconds or less. And all of a sudden, the offense looked just absolutely deadly. The biggest surprise, I would say, from the Packers offense was Randall Cobb. And Randall Cobb went back to his 2014 days.
He's the starting slot receiver now.
And he looked killer. He was Aaron Rodgers' number one choice when the game was on the line. He consistently was being found. When I was watching the game, I told my brother, I was watching it with my brother.
Wait. Let's be clear, though. Devontae Adams is the number one wide receiver.
Oh, yeah.
He had
no
a great
doubt.
game.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why I picked him up, and I drafted him in most of my fantasy football leagues, is because...
But on that, and those last 2 drives, when Aaron needed to score, it was Randall Cobb that he was going to. Randall Cobb was the one that was getting all the underneath work. Obviously, he had the splash touchdown.
that was an amazing throw.
The
That was
placement.
inches away from being tipped or picked off.
When you're starting slot receiver, and this was brilliant, by the way, to transition him from outside to slot, especially because he's getting a little bit older. He's still 28, I believe, but he's they transition him into slot, and when you have a slot wide receiver who's that athletic and can take it to the house on every play, that does so much for your offense.
Definitely. And, he's been in a slump the last couple of years. A lot of people would say that he really wasn't a good quarterback and that a good receiver, and he was a product of the QB, Aaron Rodgers. But I think this game, he kind of proved to everyone that he still got it. He can still make yards after the catch, which is a huge part of the Packers' offense.
142 yards.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
He proved himself as a wide receiver 1 last season when Aaron Rodgers had the broken collarbone. He had 10 touchdowns last year.
Devontae Adams did.
Yes.
And
who was their quarterback?
And
that was Brett Hundley.
Brett Hundley, that's right. And they traded him to the Seahawks.
Devontae Adams was the only one that he could find consistently. Randall Cobb, who knows if he'll keep this up, but I do think he could be in the starting conversation in your fantasy teams if he has another good showing next week.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and who's the number 2?
Geronimo Allison.
That's right. So
yeah. And
he had a pretty solid
deadly,
game.
Yeah,
he had 5 catches, 69 yards, nice, and 1 touchdown.
And the thing that people would continuously say about Geronimo Allison and all the beat writers and stuff for the Packers is that this guy doesn't have like next level athleticism or speed or even, he's pretty big, but he's not like a physical specimen. But he'll just continue to find ways to make plays, and that showed. That definitely showed.
And that makes me even more confident in Devontae Adams as a wide receiver 1. Is that Geronimo Allison is the wide receiver 2?
Yeah, I mean it's a lock, and I know I said that Randall Cobb was who Aaron Rodgers was going to in the late part of the game, but Devontae Adams is the wide receiver 1, no question marks, no doubts about it. It's not going to change.
Something that surprised me in this game though was Jimmy Graham was kind of non-existent.
Yeah,
I was expecting him to not be ridiculous. I wasn't expecting him to go off for 100 plus yards, touchdown or 2. I was expecting him to have a solid 50.
Well,
60
not many
game.
of their touchdowns were in the red zone, correct?
No.
Did they have any in the red zone?
No, they had a couple, but
they had a couple. Okay, yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. It really reminded me of how they were using him on the Seahawks.
And what happened,
which isn't good.
In this game was the Bears really, if you watch the game film, the Bears decided that Jimmy Graham was going to be the player that they most focused on shutting down, which is an interesting choice. It's what opened up the 3 touchdowns for the three starting wide receivers. But he got bumped on the line of scrimmage all the time. Khalil Mack would bump him, and was a good thing. He helped the team, not in fantasy, but in terms of actual offense. He helped the team just because, even on the Randall Cobb play, he ran a route to the outside, and Khalil Mack bumped him, and then dropped into coverage. And I'm sorry, but on a 3rd and 10 to basically seal the game, they would have ran a play on 4th down. But when it's crunch time and there's 2 plays left, I would rush Khalil Mack, no doubt. And they didn't. They had him bump Jimmy Graham and drop into coverage.
That is absolutely jarring idiocy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke.
There's no other way to say it. I mean, you trade for one of the best defensive freaks in the entire league,
which he just proved in the first half. That he still got it.
He was incredible, and they got him for.
He still got it. He's 27.
They got him for what, a 2nd round pick, first.
They got him for 2 first round picks, but they got a 2nd round pick back.
That's a great trade.
So it's basically they traded back in the 1st round, then they traded away another 1st round pick, and I think they gave a 3rd too, or was it a mid-round
I'm not
pick?
certain, but I know. I mean, after they received him, they did sign him to the most lucrative defensive contract.
But honestly,
regardless, Khalil Mack is so good. He's worth that deal.
Yeah,
and he proves that.
A rule in the NFL is if you have a game-breaking player or once in a generation player, you keep him at whatever cost. And this once in a generation player happens to play basically the 3rd or 2nd most important position in football. The Raiders are a dumpster fire right now. I would say
John Gruden came in and somehow managed to put them in a worse spot.
Is that our transition to the Rams Raiders game?
I mean, I
could talk about this Packers game all day.
I will say that Mitch Trubisky, we got to talk about the Bears a little bit. I know I kind of hate talking about the Bears just because they suck, but as a Packers fan, I have to say that. But Mitch Trubisky, he looked decent, but he struggled when his first read was taken away, and that's kind of what made the difference for the Packers defense in the second half. They got onto that, but he showed flashes. Yeah, I think this Bears offense is kind of wait and see still.
I don't think he's going to be the best quarterback in the world, but I think it's probably going to be. I mean, the Bears know so far they've known what they're doing in terms of their roster construction. They've really put him in a place to succeed. And I believe he's not going to be a fantastic quarterback, but he can definitely look like a competent one with the weapons that surround him.
Yeah, and I like Trubisky's upside, but a lot, like what you were saying, his first read, that's a lot of it, I think, has to do with inexperience. He started 1 year in college, and he started like 2/3, maybe half a year last year, after Glenn in the draft got pulled. And
theoretically, he's even less developed than Josh Allen.
I mean, that's not a bad take. I agree with that. And the reason I do, I was at the K-State Mississippi State game. Rest in peace, K-State. And I was watching K-State's quarterbacks, Skylar Thompson and Alex Delton, for a few drives, and they did something very similar in that you can just watch them when they drop back to pass, and they laser eye one receiver on the field, and if that's not open, they're gone. They're out of the pocket.
And that's how you get a safety just coming over the top.
Yeah.
The Bears are going to win a lot of games though this year, and to me, there's no doubt about it. If there was any quarterback on the Packers other than AR-12, that game was the Bears to win.
I'm not quite sure if they're going to win that many games this year.
I think they're going to have a decent year. I think that they're going to struggle just because of their division.
Their division, exactly.
They have
division
the
is the problem.
Packers and they have the Vikings and the Lions. Yeah, the Lions.
They got 2 wins with the Lions.
Yeah, like
it looks like so far.
But like,
I think that was a fluke game.
The Green Bay and the Vikings, that's automatically at least 3 losses. You might steal Green Bay at Soldier Field.
How dare you?
I'm a Packers fan too. I'm a Chiefs and a Packers guy. I'm trying to be realistic. I'm trying not to be too mean to the Bears, even though I really want to. But I think they could maybe steal one of the Vikings or Packers at home.
It's going to be tough.
But exactly. That'll be tough. They might be able. I want to make that clear. There's like, if they play that game at Soldier Field against the Packers 10 times, they're going to lose 9 times.
It's really unfortunate that they're building now and they have the pieces to be decent now when their division is maybe the best it's ever been.
Absolutely. And there's the teams out here are aggressive now. Ted Thompson was not aggressive, but Brian is going to be aggressive for the Packers. The Vikings showed it when they signed Sheldon and went for Kirk Cousins with that splash signing. The teams in the NFC North know they're good, but they know that they have to do stuff to continuously take it to that next level. So I don't see it slowing down. The Vikings have their core signed for years to come. Packers got 2 first-round picks next year. Bears they did lower their ceiling, I would say, in some ways with the Khalil Mack trade, because now they're losing picks and they got so much of their cap space.
Yeah, their money is locked up.
Yeah, so that's the problem with the Bears. But I think if you see a trade like that, you have to do it. I mean,
I agree.
You have to do it. And if you're a GM in the NFL and you're not actively trying to take advantage of John Gruden, you're ridiculous.
Good transition.
Get your first-round picks out of him. Like, just do whatever it takes to take advantage of him.
Yeah, speaking of John Gruden, his team looks very bad.
Yes. And they got a bunch of vets that are past their prime mixed in with a couple young guys that need more help, and not a lot of things to be positive about.
Derek Carr had a good completion percentage. He completed 72% of his passes, but he also threw 3 interceptions. But he threw for 303 yards. Derek Carr looked good.
Against the Rams.
3 picks. Against the Rams. So, like, take that with a grain of salt, because the Rams are a top 3 defense.
Easily.
They might be number 1. I mean, like, that's like, that's not like a bad argument.
The Marcus Peters interception made me cry. Because I was envisioning us picking off Phillip Rivers with Marcus Peters.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
Marcus Peters is such a talent, and the Chiefs, they made some good moves, but they really messed up.
It's the one move I disagree with.
Yeah, that's the big mess up.
But apparently he was a locker room problem, and if you have a locker room problem, then you can't let that fester. It'll blow up like what happened to the Seahawks. The Seahawks apparently, after Marshawn didn't run the ball on the 2-yard line, that set them on a track for what's happening now with the Seahawks. So maybe it was necessary. We don't know what was happening in that locker room.
Back to the Rams though. Gurley, dominant performance.
Absolutely.
Earning that contract.
Yep.
What you'd expect from him.
Goff. I've said this for a long time. I don't think Goff is a great quarterback, but he can get it done on this team.
He's got a very good system. It's a comfortable system.
And
especially with Gurley, that takes a lot of pressure off of Goff.
Oh yeah, his offensive line is top 10.
Goff is a competent quarterback. Like, he's not bad by any stretch of the imagination.
He's got Andrew Whitworth on the left, protecting his blind side.
Yeah, and he's got Brandon Cooks and Cooper Kupp. I like Cooper Kupp quite a bit. I think.
And Robert Woods.
Robert Woods
as a legitimate,
a very solid wide receiver trio.
Yeah. Like they've got a very solid offense, and then of course their defense is just absolutely stacked.
If they're gonna make the Super Bowl, it's gonna be because of their defense.
So, to me, I think Rams could be in the argument for having the most complete roster in the NFL. I think it comes down to Vikings, Rams, maybe Eagles. And I kind of want to say Vikings after the game that they just had.
Absolutely.
But Their offensive line is the one question mark, and I think the Rams and the Eagles both have better offensive lines. So where do you guys stand on that? What do you think is...
I think it's down to Rams or Eagles.
Yeah.
Personally. Or, Rams or Vikings. That's what I meant.
Think so?
Yeah.
Eagles I can see not being quite up there, especially with the Alshon Jeffrey out right now.
Yeah, because
Carson Wentz isn't back.
I really, really, really like the Eagles a lot. But I think the Vikings defense is just that good that it sets them apart. Like, their defense itself is just so good. I think it compensates almost for the fact that their offensive line is not where it needs to be.
And they show willingness to scheme out of their troubles. Like, they get the ball out quick. They, have movement in the backfield and, make sure Kirk Cousins knows what he's doing so he doesn't have to take sacks all day.
Yep.
And that's important for them.
And their defense just got a really good coach. Terrence Newman retired and immediately joined the coaching staff. Terrence Newman, probably a pretty good coach considering he played like 15 years. Like, that's a really, really long time for a corner to be successful as well.
And back to the Raiders and the Rams. The Rams got the dub, and John Gruden comes out in the press conference and he says, we need to get Amari Cooper involved more. I think he had one catch.
Yeah.
One catch for 9 yards.
Yeah.
Only targeted 3 times.
Yeah.
Because Jared Cook apparently is their number one receiver now.
Jared Cook had 180 yards receiving. He averaged 20 yards per reception.
How many catches?
9.
That actually
That's
hurts my
ridiculous.
heart because, the Packers had the opportunity to re-sign him, and we decided that Martellus Bennett would be a better choice for us, and we all know how that went.
Now, against the Rams, I can see him being shut down because he's got Marcus Peters on him.
Yeah.
Marcus Peters is not known for holding people yardage-wise. He's known for his turnovers.
Yeah.
Like, he allows yardage to be racked up against him. But when it comes to the turnovers, that's what he specializes in. This is the time that Amari Cooper should be seizing that number one wide receiver role. There's no one else.
If he doesn't do it now, I would argue that he's not going to do it.
Cooper has the talent. He just needs to go. Because last year he had a few games where he just looked outstanding. But a lot of the year, he just wasn't quite there.
Almost
And was dropping everything.
a third of his yardage last year came against the Chiefs.
Which is, that's not good. No. For the Chiefs or for Amari Cooper. Nobody wins in that situation.
No.
And, back to the Rams. Their defense just suffocating, except for Jared Cook, obviously. For some reason, Jared Cook was the one person they let slip through the
Yeah,
cracks.
I mean, I'll be looking. I mean, if you're looking for streaming tight ends, I mean, definitely look at Jared Cook in the future.
I think something that's important is to lower the standards that you have at tight end. Because, honestly, this season especially. If you look at what's happened this season with the injuries that have been suffered at
2
tight
tight
end.
ends have already gotten injured.
Yeah,
It'd be Delaney Walker and Greg Olsen. We didn't talk about the Greg Olsen injury. He sustained another foot injury, and it looks like will be out the majority of the season.
Olsen's starting to get up there in age as well, right?
He was already considering retirement, and he signed a 2-year deal. This could be it.
Yeah.
He might play next year if his foot heals well, but if it doesn't, this might be it for Greg Olsen.
That's really sad, but
yeah, I like Greg Olsen a lot.
yeah. Another matchup, another Monday night matchup. We got the Jets and the Lions as the final game of the week.
That was a big surprise.
It was a big
I think we all
surprise.
agree.
I was taking a nap and I woke up and I saw that the Jets had annihilated the Lions.
I would have thought it was a dream, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously.
especially because I watched the first play and it was a pick six from Darnold.
Right.
I'm like, well, that's what I expected.
Right.
And then I just stopped watching.
Very bad throw.
And then I come back to the score and
his
Darnold,
box score didn't impress that much.
it was a lot better considering what I expected after him throwing the pick six on the
Right.
very first play of the game. But yeah, like it's not great. I mean, like he's 16 for 21, 75% completion percentage, but like, I mean, like you'd expect that when he's only throwing like 20, 21
Yeah,
passes.
what do you have, like 100 and something yards?
198.
Yeah, 198. So, I mean, decent game. But it was more on Matthew Stafford.
Yes, Matthew Stafford.
Which
There
is
was a report that came out that said that the Jets knew what the Lions were going to run, and they knew their formations and the lineups, which is why they were able to jump the route so much. Because that's what some Jets players were saying.
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it came out and they said that, some Jets players were saying that they knew what was coming. That's why they were able to jump the routes. And so who knows? This game could be a massive fluke if that's true, and I don't know how that would have happened.
Look for people to be dropping Matthew Stafford in fantasy leagues. I would pick him up immediately
Yeah,
because he's a really good quarterback. This game made him look very bad, but
yes,
he's not bad.
4 picks, but he had a very good year last year.
Yeah.
And I like
Every year.
Stafford. Yeah, he's always been very consistent. And
Got the new deal.
Despite Detroit never really being great, which is really unfortunate because they had Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson. And those are two guys that are just way up.
He's going to put up numbers this year, especially with the wide receiving core of Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, and Kenny Galladay.
Yeah, I really like Galladay.
Galladay looks incredible.
He had 114 yards.
Yeah.
He looked very, very, very good.
And can we talk about that monster tackle that he had after the pick? Did you guys see that? I mean, that was the best tackle of the game, I would say. I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah, he was very good. And Matt Prater, though, 1 of 3 on field goals.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, which was like
It's rough.
like really random fact.
Gotta watch out for kickers these days. Dan Bailey got cut, so
Yeah.
That can happen to your team.
yeah.
Yeah, we haven't really been talking about kickers very much, but that's kind of weird because I've always seen Prater as somebody that's really consistent.
Yeah.
So, and how old is he? Prater's got to be pretty old.
Yeah, he's like 35 or something like that.
The kickers, they last a really long time. Like Phil Dawson, he's ancient. That man's like 45, 46.
Yeah.
But like, I think he's retiring after this year, and I think that they're going to pick up Matthew McCrane. I think because he had an amazing preseason.
Hot take.
He hit.
Hot take.
I don't think you can have a hot kicker take.
Yeah, it is literally impossible. I don't think they're going to do it like in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to do it next year.
Anyways, that's going to wrap up the games for the week. Great week of football.
Definitely.
It was awesome.
We're going to be back next Wednesday covering week 2 on the What Was That podcast. Sports podcast, of course.
Yeah.
We will see you guys later. Goodbye.